came to the U.S. after the withdrawal of American forces from that country. It's unclear how that would work logistically. Also, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services now announcing they are halting the processing of all immigration requests for all Afghans indefinitely. Rebecca.
All right, Jay, thank you.
President Trump says he's ready to expel anyone who is, quote, not a net asset to the United States. And he's also threatening to end immigration from what he describes as third world nations. Our Nancy Cordes is in West Palm Beach, Florida, and joins us now this morning. Nancy, what specifically is the president speaking about?
Good morning, Errol. This would be a dramatic new step by the president, cutting off migration from an unknown number of countries that he deems third world. We have asked the White House for more.
Yeah, we got to get more racist, I think. You see, just as the traffic density problem can be solved if we just built another fucking lane, the American issue is we just haven't been racist enough, right? If only we were just a little bit more locked in on the racism, just one more level in the white supremacy spectrum, and we'll fucking fix it. All of this, everything will be well. We just haven't tried. Real capitalism hasn't been tried yet. Real communism hasn't been tried yet. And also real racism hasn't been tried yet. That's just one more dial on the racism meter. I promise. Just a little bit more racism and all of the rent problem and all of the affordability problems will fucking go away, dude. These are the same motherfuckers that go, the left is calling us Nazis to kill us, and they start saying and doing Nazi shit, lol. Yeah, I mean, the entire point of that is to stop dissent. And it's an abject failure because obviously in the United States of America, free speech is one of the only things that we have. So obviously, whenever you try to take that away, Americans are going to be like, fuck no. Fuck no. They're going to say, get the hell out of here. Of course, I'm going to keep saying whatever the fuck I want to say. Because that is just a way, that is an ineffective way that the Republicans try to silence dissent. Okay? That's it. In any case, here's the long-ass effort post from this dipshit. A very happy Thanksgiving salutation to all our great citizens and patriots who have been so nice in allowing our country to be divided, disruptive, carved up, murdered, beaten, mugged, and laughed at, along with certain other... This is Stephen Miller. 100% Stephen Miller wrote this, okay? I can see from like the first couple of sentences, this is a Stephen Miller exclusive, okay? Because it is identical. It is identical to something you would hear from Goebbels or something you would hear from Hitler, you know? It's just straight up. Carved up, murdered, beaten, mugged, and laughed at, along with certain other foolish countries throughout the world for being politically correct, and this just plain stupid when it comes to immigration. The official United States foreign population stands at 53 million people, in parentheses, census, most of which are on welfare from failed nations or from prisons, mental institutions, gangs, or drug cartels. Yeah. No, totally. That's what's going on here. You're so right. It is all the foreign nationals that are on welfare. Yeah, certainly not like the fucking forgotten white people that are born and bred American that are on welfare. It's just the foreigners that are not doing anything for America except, you know, picking all the fucking crops and playing a incredibly important role in all of our agricultural output that makes sure that Americans are well fed without taking a dime out of that fucking welfare structure anyway. It's so dumb. It's so stupid. It's just so wrong. Yeah, Melania is part of them. Obviously, so is JD Vance's wife as well, by the way. Huh. Yeah, they and their children are supported through massive payments from patriotic American citizens who, because of their beautiful hearts, do not want to openly complain or cause trouble in any way, shape, or form. They put up with what has happened to our country, but it's eating them alive to do so. A migrant earning $30,000 with a green card will roughly get $50,000 in yearly benefits for their family. The real migrant population is much higher. This refugee burden is the leading cause of social dysfunction in America, something that did not exist after World War II. Failed schools, high crime, urban decay, overcrowded hospitals, housing shortages, and large deficits, etc. As an example, hundreds of thousands of refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. It's ironic to also shift the focus over to Minnesota, where Minneapolis is unironically one of the few cities in the country that has actually improved the material conditions of the people that live in Minneapolis. But of course, there's a lot of Somali people there, right? So if you're a fucking racist dipshit from looking at it from afar, you go, oh, the demographics of Minneapolis are shifting. I hate that. Meanwhile, the people of Minneapolis are actually pretty fucking happy. So happy that they hated the incumbent mayor and still ended up voting for the incumbent mayor. Right? No, Kaya. No, Kaya. Out. Get out of there. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Get. Not there. Classic. She loves getting into this one cubby. She wants the mic cables so bad. Up to mischief. Anyway, Somalian gangs are roving the streets looking for prey as our wonderful people stay locked in their apartments and houses, hoping against hope that they will be left alone. The seriously R-worded governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, does nothing, either through fear, incompetence, or both, while the worst congressman woman in our country, Ilhan Omar, always wrapped in her swaddling hijab and who probably came into the USA illegally, in that you are not allowed to marry your brother, does nothing but hatefully complain about our country, its constitution, and how badly she's treated. This has 400,000 likes. I hate this shit, dude. This is. Oh, yeah. Happy Thanksgiving. Our president is Adolf Hitler. If Adolf Hitler was somehow even dumber than the original Adolf Hitler. Awesome. Mostly bots. Breathe, brother. I know. It doesn't fucking matter. It's just still. It doesn't matter that it's mostly bots. Okay. What matters is the fucking president is saying this. It's just like sprinkle a little bit of racism. And in this instance, it's not even fucking a little bit of racism. He's just maxing out on it. Like, this is one step removed from just saying the N-word, okay? Saying that, like, black people have overtaken, while also referencing black people as you know, the N-word in this country. They have roving gangs of thugs coming from Africa. Jesus fucking Christ, dude. It's literally one step removed. And for many Americans, I think they need to hear that to actually come to terms with how fucking racist this statement is. Somali people are the same as anybody else, okay? They have the same exact class interests. They're not coming into the United States of America to look for fucking prey. This is psychotic. Jesus Christ, dude. Why many word when they only wanted to say one? Yeah. They're literally saying they want him to be a fascist. I'm ready for President Trump to actually be a little more like the fascist dictator the Democrats lie about. Crush this invasion and color revolution with an iron fist, no mercy. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they're saying, I mean, they've been saying this. These guys are, I don't know why we're acting as though they're like now coming to terms, right? The post gets worse. It gets worse. Oh, Ilhan Omar. He continues on with Ilhan Omar, but hatefully complain about our country, constitution, and how badly she is treated when our place of origin is a decadent, backward, and crime-ridden nation, which is essentially not even a country for lack of government, military, police, schools, etc. Even as we have progressed technologically, immigration policies eroded those gains and living conditions for many. I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries to allow the U.S. system to fully recover, terminate all the millions of Biden illegal admissions, including those signed by Sleepy Joe Biden's auto pen, and remove anyone who is not a net asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country, end all federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens of our country, denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility, and deport any foreign national who is a public charge, security risk, or non-compatible with Western civilization. What the f*** does this mean? These goals will be pursued with the aim of achieving a major reduction in illegal and disruptive populations, including those admitted through an unauthorized and illegal auto pen approval process. Only reverse migration can fully cure the situation. Other than that, happy Thanksgiving to all, except those that hate, steal, murder, and destroy everything that America stands for. You won't be here for long. Yeah, this is a Stephen Miller rant, 100%. Donald Trump is not capable of crafting this many words together. And also, you can see the anger and resentment. Remigration is obviously a European fascist concept, by the way. Yeah, is a far-right concept originally from Europe of ethnic cleansing via the mass deportation. Remigration is it was utilized by the AfD in Germany, or is being utilized by the AfD in Germany. It just means like remigration is just deportation. It's just a European way of saying deportation. Oh, I think you're cooked. Me? Why? I'm American citizen. You can suck my dick if you think I'm getting deported out of this country. Yeah. By the time, as I've said over and over again, by the time it gets to someone like myself being denaturalized, it's over for America has shifted so dramatically. I'm not saying that that's not like a ambition from this administration, but if they're coming after like a rich Twitch streamer with a massive fan base who is an American citizen, born American, natural born U.S. citizen, that means they've gone over so many more vulnerable populations at this point. Because I'm not a naturalized citizen. I'm a natural born U.S. citizen. People aren't focused enough on the word denaturalized here. The president says he will revoke the citizenship of Americans who weren't born here if he and Stephen Miller decide they need to go. Denaturalization is a rare and legally difficult process that Miller and white nationalists like Nick Fuentes have been pushing to supercharge the process for years now. But as Trump makes clear by citing the number 53 million, which includes foreign-born citizens, any American who wasn't born here is now, at least in the eyes of the government, at risk of deportation. He's right. I don't think they're going to get away with this. I think they are far too unpopular. I'll just say it like this. I think they are far too unpopular to try to unleash an agenda like this. And no, you might get mad at me for saying this, but I do not believe that Americans are this racist, or at least enough Americans are this racist. Okay? Are there Americans that are this racist? Yes, absolutely. There are. But look to how quickly people snap back to reality when the mass deportation initiatives came to their neighborhoods. Okay? You have to do... What do I always say? Americans are too disorganized and too invested in their treats to actually be a part of a serious, disciplined fascist movement. Then you need to do reading to get to that level of racism, okay? They're just like normal races for the most part. The average American might have values that resemble the neo-Nazi in another country, but they're not well-read enough to act out on those ambitions. They're not disciplined enough. They don't care enough. You do not have a mass, ideologically committed fascist movement in this country. This is basically trying to. This is a statement by Stephen Miller in the direction of a mass, ideologically coherent and ideologically organized, loyal movement that does not exist. Okay. If he had actually spent the first half of a year on fixing the underlying material inequities or something and offering some crumbs that would obviously harm the interests of capital, and then he moved in this direction, we would be in this would be a far greater concern. Okay? We're not there, and there is no loyalty beyond a cult-like cult-like level of support for Donald Trump from the base that is withering away. Okay? Yeah, Americans can still get a decent meal at Applebee's. They can enjoy the treats. We're not a country full of PTSD-riddled World War I soldiers who experience insane hyperinflation and are mad that like they're not getting their pensions or adequate medical care. Even though there are plenty of people who are, PTSD addled veterans that aren't getting that medical care. By and large, Americans are still, they're still outside of that equation. If you're a legal immigrant or the children of legal immigrants, they're coming for you too. It doesn't matter if you're a U.S. citizen. It doesn't matter if you were born here. No one is safe. This is the agenda of the far right. Yeah. The Department of Homeland Security also posted the stakes have never been higher and the goal has never been more clear. Remigration now. These guys are so stupid, dude. Even though morally ambiguous, America might be better off with some sort of serious expulsion mechanism. The f are you talking about, dude? One of the few redeeming qualities of the United States of America is the fact that immigrants have actually made this country the dominant power that it is, whether it be the brain drain or whether it be the rich tapestry of cultures. It's so stupid. We got like a couple things going for us, okay? Our diversity, our free speech, or at least that still obviously has limitations, but like the free speech that kind of exists, okay, and due process. And Donald Trump is trying to tackle all three. It's so stupid, especially because there is no real problem here. Do you understand? Like if there was, okay, I will say it like this. I will concede on this point. If there was a significant issue with migrants coming into the United States of America and actually doing harm, like killing people on the streets, preying on the vulnerable, trying to, trying to create like roving gangs that are looking for white women to rape and behead or whatever the these psychopaths believe, then yeah, that's a little bit more reasonable. In that situation, if that racist fantasy was reality, then yeah, there is a lot more reason to unironically say, hey, we got to put these guys in jail. What the f are we doing? Or maybe even dispose of them or remove these people from the American national boundaries. This is a significant burden. Okay. But that's not the case. That's not the case anywhere on the planet. Okay. Because that's just not how humans are. Nobody migrates to the United States of America. So they're like, oh, yeah, land of opportunity to do rapes. Are you insane? That's not how this works. No, when people say, oh, I'm going to the land of opportunity, they mean like, oh, this country has a far better material circumstances and presents a far better future for someone like myself, like Afghan Muslims. New York Times got a State Department cable in which Rubio orders diplomats in Europe, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand to press for immigration limits and cite crime. They're also told to report on governments that are pro-immigration. That is a description of settler colonial societies in which transplants are sent to terrorize indigenous populations. Isn't third world migration to the hegemonic metropole? Oh, anyway, it's just so stupid. It's stupid because this doesn't actually solve any of the issues that people are facing, like the real issues, okay? It's just a made up problem. And the more people refuse to solve the real problems, the more they lean into this made up problem. Okay. And here we are. I cannot believe it. I can't believe how psychotic this is. This is insane. The Trump administration is arresting the wives and husbands of U.S. citizens when they show up for their green card interviews, even though they entered legally and have no criminal record. So much for family values, says Nicholas Kristof, New York Times columnist, author. Elon is cheering this on, of course. You are absolutely right in response to Donald Trump. This is a literal life or death issue. They will kill us all. This is what the hogs got out of that post. Trump officially gave us the R word back. Nice, dude. Just, we're all systems go on the shitification. It's just like everything that the American government has done that's like awful and bad and cruel, we're just leaning into. Okay. Oh, the cruelty is what you want, right? People are like, no, we want affordability. We want affordability. And the administration goes, oh, you mean you want more cruelty, more senseless cruelty, more murder in Latin America and more cruelty to your neighbors. That's what you mean, right? And it's like, no, we want affordability. He's like, nah, actually, no, we want more cruelty. That's what you want. I'm going to give it to you. It doesn't matter what you want. More blood for the blood god. New Indiana Senate Republican Mike Bohacek, whose daughter has Down syndrome, says he's a no on redistricting, citing Trump's slur. Many of you asked my position on redistricting. I've been an unapologetic advocate for people with intellectual disabilities since the birth of my second daughter. Those of you that don't know me or my family might not know that my daughter has Down syndrome. This is not the first time our president has used these insulting and derogatory references, and his choices of words have consequences. I will be voting no on redistricting. Perhaps he can use the next 10 months to convince voters that his policies and behavior deserve a congressional majority. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, this is the most terrifying racialized screed I've read in a while. And I'm sure we'll say, based. This is based. He's going to save America based. And many of their stupid neck-bearded supporters will also go along with it. Meanwhile, holy based. Meanwhile, the actual material harm that they're experiencing is not being solved because of their ability to realize that Trump is actually doing this as a distraction for them. Okay? Everyone's a dumbass. Anyone that eats this goddamn bait is an absolute moron. I don't know. This is so psychotic. Yeah, meanwhile, Donald Trump is now facing the lowest approval rating of his second term, 36%, lower than Joe Biden at his lowest. And his response has been to unleash some of the most openly racist, nativistic rhetoric of his presidency, blaming immigrants for nearly every problem in American life. In a Thanksgiving Truth Social post, Trump claimed most of the 53 million immigrants are on welfare, and the refugee burden is the leading cause of social dysfunction in America. Failed schools, high crime, urban decay, overcrowded hospitals, housing shortages, and large deficits. He claims Somalis are taking over Minnesota and declared a pause to migration from all third world countries while vowing to denaturalize green card holders who aren't sufficiently loyal. In a segment on CNN, Tia Mitchell of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution said the White House sees this as the only thing he has to counteract all these concerns people are raising about why his approval levels are so low. They're worried about the cost of goods, safety, housing, healthcare, and he's not addressing that directly. She said people's healthcare issues aren't being resolved with the crackdowns at the southern border and the anti-immigration policies. Where have you heard that statement before? I've been saying that.
This is very much in line with the way that the president and people in his administration, people like Stephen Miller, have been talking about immigration. President Trump, in his remarks on Wednesday night, brought up Somalia. That is not an accident. That is something that the president has been focused on recently and that he is emphasizing. You look at refugee policies where the White House wants to bring in white people from South Africa who they say are being persecuted. They don't want to bring in other refugees. The refugee program has been severely restricted under the Trump administration already. So in a lot of ways, this is a terrible event that has given them a sort of a peg to do a lot of the things that they were already doing or wanted to do. And it does come at a time when the president's approval ratings are in a really bad place, including on immigration. But this is a realm of immigration where he has had more traction than some of the other areas.
And speaking of the refugee issue, this is what he said in a couple of late night posts last night. Right before midnight, he put out these posts here on Thanksgiving night. He said, this refugee burden is the leading cause of social dysfunction in America, something that did not exist after World War II. Failed schools, high crime, urban decay, overcrowded hospitals, housing shortages, and large deficits. He's very clear where he's going with this.
Well, I like the way that Tamara put it. It is something they want to do. It's a long-term project. This administration, with the 4 years it has been given by voters, wants to transform the immigration system, one, so there's a larger deportation force, so that immigration courts are seen as deportation courts, as they call them. They're doing more hiring right now to make that happen. They're trying to build the capacity for mass deportation because it wasn't there in the first term. You've covered this. So many things that they're doing right now are taking the lessons of the first term, where they were stymied by a court or stopped by a court, going to a more favorable court this time, a point with we saw this with the Muslim ban. It was a 5-4 decision that upheld the president. That's a 6-3 conservative court now. So they like their odds, but there is a long-term strategy here. But what are the political risks of it? For Trump, he's not on the ballot again. For Republicans, we already saw them lose ground with Asian American and Arab American voters in Virginia and New Jersey. Just huge shifts back away from the Republican Party. This is not the Republican agenda that won Dearborn, let's say, in the last election. This is more like what he wanted to do in the first place. And voters don't get a veto on this. It's going to be fought out in the courts. In Congress, look, final point I'll make is why was it easier for some Afghans to get here if they cooperate with the Americans in the war? Was bipartisan vote of Congress that made the Allies Act. Mike Johnson voted for that. I don't think you're going to have any Republicans saying that was a good idea. Now the Stephen Millers of the party, who already were controlling the narrative, are going to control the politics too.
Very few Republicans voted against that.
Yeah,
in
I
fact,
think 16.
Yeah, something like that. So part of this post, there were just a number of things that are eyebrow-raising, to say the very least. This is what he said he said, refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. He said that there are Somalian gangs looking for prey. As he said, people are staying locked in their apartments. He called the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, quote, seriously retarded. He went on to call Ilhan Omar the worst congressman/woman. He ridiculed her for wearing a hijab, and she said that question about whether she's in the country illegally.
Yeah, a lot of that is problematic.
It's racist.
I was just going to say it's rooted in racism and xenophobia.
Yeah.
A little bit of misogyny possibly in there, or sexism in there as well. And I think that there are people in the White House who believe that the best message that Donald Trump has right now is his anti-immigration message. That's really the only thing that he has to counteract all the concerns people are raising about why voters why his approval levels are so low. They're worried about the cost of goods. They're worried about safety. Yes. They're worried about the cost of.
Did Trump just alt? Yes, he did. He alted for sure. He's blowing his load over full tilt fascism.
Housing. They're worried about health care. And he's not addressing much of that directly, but what he is doing is saying indirectly, the immigrants in the U.S. are causing or contributing to all those problems. I don't know if that's going to work with the American people, because they've seen the immigration crackdowns, but they also have seen that grocery prices aren't going down as a result. Their health care issues aren't being resolved, even with the crackdowns at the southern border. So yes, he can do more on immigration, but I don't know if that's going to address what American voters really expect him to be working on.
Or trust me, somehow it will work because Americans are very racist. I don't think so. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of racist Americans, but I don't think most Americans are that racist. Okay? America is far too diverse for Americans broadly to be that racist. And you didn't trust me when I told you the immigration stuff was going to backfire. So trust me on this, okay? If Americans were that racist and this was the most important part of his agenda, then they would have been perfectly fine with Donald Trump implementing his anti-immigrant agenda. Why did Donald Trump experience record low disapprovals by this point in his term? Why is Donald Trump seen as morally repugnant? Why is Donald Trump's attitude? Why is Donald Trump's policies on immigration being negatively received? Why is Donald Trump's policies on immigration now being negatively received by the population? It's because Americans conceptualize legislation, but when that legislation is implemented, especially on the right, and they start experiencing the impact and the outcome of said legislation, they immediately go, no, this is not what I was talking about. I didn't realize this is what it was going to look like. And I told you this before the election. I told you that eventually, once the Gestapo start kidnapping people, that Americans were very quickly going to turn around and say, yeah, we didn't like this at all, actually. Now, we can have a conversation on whether or not that's too late, too little too late, sure. But ultimately, that means that Americans are not actually on board with this level of mass deportation at all. They don't like seeing the wives and husbands of American citizens get kidnapped at their green card meetings, okay? At their green card at their green card appointments. Who the wants that? Because that's what mass deportation looks like. Do you understand? If Americans were really horny for this level of violence towards random migrants, then Donald Trump's then Donald Trump would still be killing it on the immigration front. He would still have overwhelming numbers on the immigration front because he's been following through on that, right? So one must ask the question, why, especially in places where ICE is doing raids? When ICE comes into your neighborhood, your attitude changes dramatically. You might have been a Trump voter, for example, and you start seeing people like the barback at the restaurant that you go to get arrested and apprehended for no reason. You see military raids at the Home Depot that you frequent against people that you've contracted out for help in the past, landscapers, gardeners, things of that nature. And you go, who is this for? I didn't want this. You did. You voted for it. Now you're experiencing the impact and you don't like it. Don't say they like it. It's not true. There are plenty of people who don't like it. Okay? Plenty of people who thought they like it actually see it happen and go, oh, I don't like it. It's no different than that one Republican congressperson who was like, I love Donald Trump, but then he said the R word and my second daughter has Down syndrome and it turns out I actually don't like Trump now. Do you not understand? And Trump's disapproval proves that, okay? The discontent proves that people don't like it. The mass mobilization proves that people don't like it. The No Kings rallies is another clear-cut example that people don't like it. They're mobilizing. They're taking it to the streets. Americans are deeply selfish people. They're taking time out of their days to go out and protest, okay? That means they don't like it. And you cannot continue this agenda without mass approval. You cannot continue this agenda with mass disapproval, especially when that disapproval will only grow. If Donald Trump was killing it and he had no concerns about his base recognizing that he's not doing on affordability, he wouldn't bring Zohran Mamdani into the White House and sit by his side and act all chummy and even defend him against contentious questions in the by the press pool, right? He wouldn't have to do that. He'd just be like, that's a Muslim communist. We have to denaturalize him immediately. Because what Trump is saying only a week after that Zohran Mamdani meeting is that Zohran Mamdani should be deported. So which is it? I said roads are unpaved, schools underfunded, utility bills are costly. Half your paycheck subsidizes your landlord's lifestyle. You have no real job prospects. Your health insurance premiums are insanely high. Immigrants are not the reason for this. Trump and his rich buddies are. And that's just the truth, and I will continue saying it. And I think there is an unprecedented opportunity to make Americans recognize that now, because the guy that they voted for is not delivering on this. Approval ratings mean nothing to these people. I don't even know why it's discussed on the news. It means nothing to maybe the MAGA cult, but it means something to us. It means that people are experiencing disapproval. And specifically on the issue of immigration, okay? That's what's very consequential here, because if Americans were broadly in support of Donald Trump's attitudes on immigration, okay, 90% of Democrats disapprove of Trump on immigration. 66% of independents disapprove on Trump's attitudes on immigration. 81% of Republicans approve of Donald Trump's policies on immigration. But you cannot continue your agenda with just the Republicans, okay? You can't. That's why his overall disapproval on immigration, which was his most successful policy was mass deportations, ran on mass deportation, is at sitting at 57% disapproval right now. That's it.